From the Homestead Studios in Santa Clarita, California, it's Just the Tip-Sters with Melissa Morgan. If you've got a tip on anything you find interesting, an unsolved murder, a real-life mystery, a clue as to what the hell Mick Jagger is singing about in Tumbling Dice, anything, tell us about it by leaving a voicemail message on the Tipster hotline at 832-TIPSTER. That's area code 832-847-7837. Or send an email to jttipsters@gmail.com. You just might hear us talk about it on the podcast. And now here's your host. She loves hot tips, but hates hot yoga, Melissa Morgan.
More cowbell. Well, you got that right, Producer Mark. I hate hot yoga with a white hot passion. Don't get me started on that shit. Producer Mark has mentioned that perhaps hot yoga could be a topic of one of the podcasts because it kills people. But it's like, you know, guns don't kill people, hot yoga kills people. I'm not sure anyone's actually died from it, but I'm waiting. I'm waiting right here in the wings. I have helped rehab 2 yoga teachers who can no longer teach yoga or practice yoga because they've slipped in their sweat and hurt themselves so badly. But that's really a story for another day. When I started this podcast, I called it my True Crime, Murder, and Yoga podcast. And that, you know, sort of bears out a little bit in my history as a yoga practitioner and instructor, and the Lululemon case and my displeasure with how yoga is often portrayed in pop culture, using it for commercials, and constantly in scripted shows that the yoga teacher is always a murderer. If there's a yoga teacher plot line at all in any sort of hour-long murder drama, it's going to be the yoga teacher that kills people because they think, oh, no, everyone's going to think the yoga teachers are all candles and sandals. No, they're all killers. So I'm always shocked and surprised and somewhat gleefully delighted when a story comes up about a killer yoga teacher. Dun, 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 dun. And this one, at first, I was really willing to pass it off quickly because I thought, well, that doesn't even make sense. But the more I dug into it, these bitches is fascinating. So I have a hooded sweatshirt that I use to walk the dogs and when it's cold. And on the front, it says, "Yoga girls are twisted." And I posted it on Facebook several years ago when I got it. And several really sweet husbands of female yoga instructors bought the sweatshirt because I modeled it so beautifully. Not really. I got it incredibly too large, but that's fine. It's nice in the winter.
I think it looks beautiful on you.
No, it looks like me and you and a dog named Boo could get inside. It's so fucking big, but that's okay. I tend to overestimate my size or underestimate my size depending on the day. So it says yoga girls are twisted, which I always thought was hilariously funny. But these yoga girls is twisted. I hate to even call them yoga girls because I don't know what they are. They were definitely interesting, ethereal subjects. So I'm going to start with their birth names, and they were changed to much more exotic names. I'm going to think it was because they had so many ulterior motives, like wanting to be famous, etc. So these 2 beautiful identical twins, Anne and Allison Daydow, were born in January of 1978 in Utica, New York. Now, Anne dies in a traffic accident May 29th of 2016 in Maui, sort of at the hands of her sister. So Anne and Allison later on become Anastasia and Alexandria Duval, which is, I gotta say, those are pretty good fucking names. Not that Anne and Allison Daydow aren't great names, but Alexandria and Anastasia Duval, I'd go see that movie. I don't even know what the movie is, but
They sound like characters on an Aaron Spelling show.
Oh my God, that's perfect. Yes, they would absolutely be Maui 00127 or whatever the hell the zip code is there.
Yes.
I don't know. But so these girls who were born in upstate New York in 1978 find their way to West Palm Beach. And they are studying to be, and this is when they're adults, they are studying to be stenographers when Keith Weiss, who's a chef at a fancy shishi restaurant, meets Allison in 2006. And she and her sister, Anne, were studying to be stenographers, and Allison would come in every night to hang at the shishi bar and drink. And Keith meets her, and they get along great. And then eventually, Anne comes in, and they hit it off, and they end up dating for 6 months. Now, the part about Keith I worry about, and I mean, I think we can all probably understand, pretty. I'm not going to say like beautiful, because they really kind of did some shit to their faces, like a too much filler or something. And these are, chicks in their 30s now, and back then they were, their 20s or something. I don't know. So they're attractive, they're blonde, they're ambitious as all fuck, man. They are really ambitious girls. So you wouldn't know it from the stenography classes, but I think they're like, we are destined for greatness. So he dates Anne for 6 months. And I don't really know why he hung in there, except that what I was going to say is crazy bitches usually are good lays. I'm going to guess that Anne was just like a fucking wildcat or something. I don't know. So this highly trained chef, dates Cray Cray, and Cray Cray's sister comes along on quite a few dates. I'm going to be like, number one red flag. I'm throwing in the towel. So Keith says there was so much drama. They would really get into it. I have a few of the incidents that happened in these 6 short months that he dated Anne. One time we were all three at the mall, and Anne smacked Allison in the back of the head really hard. They went back and forth with each other, pulling hair. This comes into play later, pinching each other. And it was as if they had blocked everything out around them, and they were the only 2 people alive.
This is in a mall.
In the mall. These are grown-ass adult women, by the way. And he's on a date with one of them, and her identical twin tags along, and they get in a big fight. Oh, it goes way far downhill from here, producer Mark. Don't think that the mall incident... And I know if you and I, when we had first started dating, and I had an identical twin sister or a cousin or a friend, and we started pulling each other's hair and pinching each other at the mall, you'd have been like, see you later, bitch.
Yeah, sex is great. I'm out.
Yeah. Well, thanks for that ringing endorsement. But yeah, there's no sex in the world. But wait, there's more. So the first time that he's in a car with Anne, when she's driving, Allison's in the back, and they start fighting. And Anne lets go of the wheel. And they're going back and forth with each other, and they're oblivious to any of the danger that's happening. Other cars are around them, and Anne almost loses control, but she gets control back, and he's like, okay, that's weird. So now this is the next car incident. I should probably actually not do that one, because that's where he decides to break up with her. But the one that I really love, the car incident is the icing on the cake, car incident number 2. This is my favorite of the stories that have been recounted by exes or people in their life. This is my favorite. I think you get, when I say there are signs, when everyone says there are signs that people are either a sociopath or that really deeply involved in their mental illness, there are always signs. Always signs. And these girls seem to pick up and move to a different part of the world when the signs get easy to read. So this is...
I mean, beating up your sister
No.
in the mall
Wait,
is pretty
baby.
big sign.
I mean, wait, producer Mark, didn't mean to call you baby. That's very unprofessional of me, and I am your boss right now. So please don't file sexual harassment suit against me. Please. I can't afford a Harvey Weinstein payout to you.
Yeah, I can't afford the lawyer, so don't worry.
All right, thank you. All right. This is the incident that I think is... It's just so spectacularly explained. So Keith gets a call from Anne saying, get over here right now. I'm going to kill her. And he heard her hitting Allison in the head with the phone. He hears thump, 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 and they're screaming at each other. He races over there to their apartment. There is broken glass everywhere from wine bottles and shattered glasses they threw at each other. There's blood everywhere, and the bedroom door is hanging on its hinge. And both of the girls are sitting on the couch when he walks in, and he's like, hey, are you guys okay? Allison has a bruise on her face, and he's like, are you girls okay? And they're like, yeah, we're good. We're fine. We're watching a movie. And he says, wait. Meanwhile, around them is total destruction, and they seem to not know that they had wanted to kill each other just a few minutes earlier. That's my favorite of the stories. Here's what happened when Keith decides to finally break up with Anne. They're driving home from another one of their stellar dates where Allison is accompanying them. And they both wanted him to stop so they could get another glass of wine. And he didn't want to stop. So Anne starts kicking his hands and kicking him off the steering wheel. And he's swerving into traffic. Allison is in the back kicking the windows with her feet. He said she takes her left foot across her body from the passenger seat and kicks his right hand off the steering wheel. Kicks his hand off the steering wheel. And he says, please stop. You're going to kill us. Please stop. And they just didn't care.
So they get into like a zone and they don't even know what they're doing.
I think so. And I hate to say this, but I believe we know that in most of the incidents in their life, there's a cocktail involved. That's what I say when people start to tell me a story that they think is interesting or fascinating, and I'm like, and someone's behaving really badly, I'm like, was there a cocktail involved?
I hate to admit it, but you're right.
Yeah, there's usually a cocktail involved. I hate to say this.
Well, here you've got alcohol, plus you've got crazy, plus they're twins, which is also weird.
I think weird too. I hate to say that. I mean, twins are fascinating to me. Being an only child, I mean, no siblings, definitely not a twin. I am fascinated by siblings in general, but twins, identical twins, who have a real penchant for tearing the shit out of each other, really fascinating to me. So it becomes even more interesting to me when they discover the world of yoga, which I think they felt was a springboard to success and fame. I think they just wanted to be famous. They tried out for many reality shows saying, and they kind of really played up the whole love-hate relationship thing. They've been arrested up to 10 times. Mostly alcohol-related issues. It seems to follow them everywhere.
So they went on TV, tried to get on TV shows, playing up the fact that they would try to kill each other?
Yes, that they had a love-hate relationship. I think emphasis on the hate part. But yeah, it's like we try to kill each other, but we love each other 1 minute later. And that's, I think, probably the most honest thing they could have said. They tried out for Survivor and, really kind of playing up the attractive twin thing. It didn't work. They didn't get on any TV shows, but they did end up opening a yoga studio in West Palm Beach called Are You Sitting Down? Twin Power Yoga. So Wonder Twins Unite. So they became very successful, and a lot of the information I'm getting here, and there is a plethora of information online about this case. It's also very, very fresh and new. It was settled at the beginning of February of this year, so just literally weeks ago. There's the Star News. There's New York Times, New York Daily News. The Maui News, we'll find out why that's involved later. But so they're in, West Palm Beach, and they start this yoga studio that was successful for a while. I think they were the flavor of the month for a while in 2006. They are so successful, they open up a second location of Twin Power Yoga. They drive matching Porsches, and one of them has the vanity plate that says Twin Yoga, TWNYOGA. And I'm pretty sure that Allison held that against Anne, until the day she kills her. Until the day she accidentally dies. So they lived above their means, and they ended up closing both locations pretty abruptly and leaving, staff and teachers unpaid, like $100,000 worth of debts. And they moved to Park City, Utah. And they changed their names to Anastasia and Alexandria Duval. And so I don't want it to be confusing. It's already confusing for me because there's two of them and they look exactly alike. And I'm going to call them by their old and new names. Hopefully at some point this is going to coalesce and I will call them by their new names and no one will be confused from here on in. But if you just remember, Anne is Anastasia because that's A-N, and Alexandria is Allison, A-L, Alexandria Allison. So it might be easier to remember that. So they moved to Park City, Utah. And I'm just going to say West Palm Beach, Park City, Utah, and their eventual, resting place is Maui. These are cities where famous people tend to hang out. These are cities where the rich and famous go to play. And I think these were smart girls and that they wanted to really exploit what they had, shake what their mama gave them. And it just didn't go well. It really didn't go well. So they moved to Park City, Utah, and it doesn't get better from there. So they open a twin power yoga studio under their new names. And students of the studio are like, this is really weird. It's almost like we're not there. And they are into one-upmanship, like bizarre instructions. One former student who actually spoke to the press is also a yoga instructor herself. And she said the classes were unlike anything she's ever taken. Their instructions, their demeanor, their energy, everything was off-putting. They're very frenetic and disorganized. They teach at the same time and talk over each other, which I think twins do. I mean, you see twins, if you ever see them interviewed, they finish each other's sentences and, they share the same DNA. It's very fascinating. It's just so.
But they would teach the classes together.
Yep.
Is that common? Does that happen?
Yeah. Depending on the type of class, like the length of the class, typically if there's more than one instructor, it's a specialty class, whether it's a teacher training or maybe one person is assisting the other person. But what you don't have, it could be a workshop too, where one person starts the workshop and the other person maybe has expertise in something else and finishes the workshop. What you don't have are people talking over each other, and you don't have yoga teachers who look the exact same.
Right.
So this woman says, it was honestly one of the most bizarre yoga experiences I've ever had. And they were giving instructions that didn't seem to make much sense to me. And they were at the same time. And they were both assisting me. So I can't imagine you're practicing yoga and there's two people like kind of pulling on you. I guess this woman's lucky they didn't pull her apart. But, she said it was really an unusual experience. And I think any yoga practitioner or even yoga instructor would agree. So she said she went to one of their evening classes and almost walked out when they made fun of her. They made fun of the pose she was in. And she said, it's unbelievably rude. You don't demean someone else's personal experience. And that's what yoga is about, is your personal experience. And that's something I want to say, is that I love teaching yoga with all my heart. I love practicing yoga. I love taking other people's classes and learning something new, seeing a different way of explaining poses, of sequencing the poses. I learn something every time I take someone else's class. And it's a relief to turn yourself over to someone else who's an instructor. You don't have to think about it. You don't have to be, worrying about any of the students. I am a codependent people pleaser, and I teach restorative yoga mostly. I teach them gentle yoga and yin yoga, which I love with all my heart. But, I take it very seriously, and worry and make sure that everyone is comfortable and happy and safe. And when I get to take a class, I get to let that go. So this woman was already an instructor and taking a class from, tag team crazy ass Wonder Twin power yoga bitches. And she said that, they were using a lot of pseudo spiritual speak that didn't even make sense. It didn't mean anything. And quite frankly, a lot of their information was just incorrect. I don't know what to say except it was just incorrect. And, there's lots of people backing this up. And maybe Park City, is a tiny place. They said it's a very small yoga community. I get it. But, if more than one person says, this is a little bit weird, where there's smoke, there's fire, maybe. I hate to talk about the dead. Not really. I love to talk about the dead. So one of the teachers that worked at their Park City studio said that one evening, they both came in wearing street clothing, adjusted the music in her class, started adjusting the students, and then talking over each other, giving instructions, all the things they told her not to do. And it was after the class that she realized there might be alcohol involved.
Oops. Well, there's that thing again.
I think we see a running theme here. So they end up, after just basically a year in Park City, they end up declaring bankruptcy again. They leave the Park City studio abandoned and unpaid staff and teachers. The same thing they did in West Palm Beach. This time they say they're $150,000 in debt each. And they're kicked out of a restaurant in January of 2014 for drinking too much. And then they're involved in a more minor crash where officers said the twins were fighting each other and fought the police when they arrived, when their car had slid into a ditch. And hold on to your hat, hair pulling is involved. Grown-ass women. Grown-ass women. I'm just saying that.
And they fought the cops, too.
Uh-huh.
And they didn't end up in jail for a long time, obviously.
I got to be honest with you. Seeing their arrest record, I do not know how these girls... I think, isn't it... I mean, I guess not every state is like a three strikes thing. How many DUIs do you get before? I mean,
most states have points that you get. If you get like 3 points, you lose your license or something.
Right. So let me ask you this, Legal Eagle. If you change your name.
Yeah. That's probably a way that they got around it, but it's probably still illegal. But
of course it's illegal. But I'm going to say that I don't know a lot of people who drink, and I only know a few people who have gotten DUIs. One of them was in another country, and that a neighboring country, and it didn't. This person had to go back to that country and take care of that issue, and it cost a lot of money, as it should. I feel like it should sting. If you're driving drunk and I don't care what you do to yourself. If you want to drink and drive yourself into a tree in a field, God bless you, knock yourself out, literally and figuratively. But if you're driving drunk on streets where you're going to kill someone else, fuck and you, stop it. So that person, I'm not faulting her. I said her. I'm not faulting that person. And the other person I know was in this country, but main residency was in another state and had a vacation home and got a DUI at the state where her vacation home was, and the two states do not communicate. So similarly to the problem I have with a lot of law enforcement not communicating on, murder cases, etc., and a lot of things go unsolved when people could get together, put their heads together and solve a case. Apparently, the DUI system also not as connected. In today's world with this technology, I don't understand. But okay, so it's a moot point discussing their DUIs. However, they leave Park City And they end up in Maui. Now they have their new names, Anastasia and Alexandria. And they go to Maui in December of 2015 on what they call a religious quest. And it didn't go well there either. On Christmas Eve, they're arrested for disorderly conduct and terroristic threatening and told to leave a restaurant for being too drunk.
Terroristic threatening.
I know. What does that mean?
I wish I knew.
Oh, okay.
I wish you could find out what they said. My God.
Terroristic threatening. Now, this is Maui, and I got to be honest with you. Seeing how this case went, I am suspicious of the laws in Hawaii. They actually call themselves a territory. I don't, I've often said, and I sound like a shitbag, but the one time that we went to Hawaii, I was like, this is a fucking third world country. And granted, we did not go to Maui or Kona or whatever, or not Kona. We did go to Kona, whatever the other one is, Waikiki. We went to the Big Island, and it's a motherfucking third world country. It is a fucking third world country. I could bitch about Hawaii, the Big Island, until my ass falls off. But we went in October. It's called shoulders weather, which is a complete misnomer. I don't know, unless it means you want to pull your shoulders off and throw them at people because it's so fucking hot and humid you wish you were dead. And producer Mark will attest to this. We got off the plane and I turned around and I think I grabbed him by the shoulders and said, "Can we go home?"
You're leaving. You did do that, but you're leaving out the part that before we left, I said, it's hot there.
All right.
But
yes.
Okay, all right.
Yes, you did. What is someone to do when their husband comes home and says, I have access to $1 million condo we could have for a week for free. All we'd have to do is pay for our plane tickets. And I'm like, we're going. We're going to renew our vows for our 5th anniversary on the beach. We're going. Never been to Hawaii. Can't wait to go. October. It's going to be cool. No.
The entire time I'm saying, no, it's not. And she funnily enough, and ironically enough, she accused me of being drunk when I said that.
I think I did.
Yeah, you did.
Even
You said
though
you're
you've
drunk.
been sober for 26 years or 27 years, I was like, yes, you are drunk right now, sir. It's October.
Yeah, neither of us had a lot of fun.
No, it was awful.
When we left the condo.
No, it was awful. And even in the condo, which was gorgeous and beautiful and overlooked the Keauhou Bay in Kona, and the air conditioning never got below 76.
Okay, so we're going to cross Hawaii off the fan base for the podcast.
Oh,
now.
sorry.
Yeah.
Shit.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway, so they end up in Maui, December of 2015, on a religious quest. It's really not going well. So they end up quickly living with their respective boyfriends in a spacious rental in Maui. Where they're getting their money, I don't really know, because they've declared bankruptcy and I don't think they're working. And they haven't had time to open up Twin Power Yoga Part 2. They just, I don't know what they're doing. So they're living in a spacious rental. And let's see, Alexandria's boyfriend, Lonnie Dickerson, is the registered owner of an SUV that is used by the girls. Unfortunately, not so good for Anastasia. She doesn't make it out of that. So I don't know Lonnie Dickerson. I see nothing about him online, but Anastasia's boyfriend, Frederico Bailey, he is fascinating. So after the accident on May 29th of 2016, which is a hella accident, and if you ever feel like researching it and going online to look at the pictures, I don't know how either of them survived a fucking thing. And quite frankly, how the driver, Alexandria, because they land on the driver's side. And this Ford Explorer belonging to Alexandria's boyfriend is an accordion. They've plunged 200 feet down off a cliff and land on some rocks where the sea just basically comes right up to the rocks. It's a mess, man. It's a mess. So During the opening statements, and the trial really just started end of January, the prosecuting attorney, Emmeline Higa, said that Alexandria intentionally and knowingly drove off the cliff as the sisters were fighting. Now, the prosecuting attorney thinks that it was a homicide kind of thing, a suicide attempt. Alexandria is saying absolutely no. But the list of witnesses are fascinating. So one witness says that he saw the Ford Explorer zigzagging down the road. Now, this is in Hana, which apparently is a 2-lane road around Maui. At some points is so narrow, you have to pull to the side to let another car pass you. So it's like a 1.5 lane road. So he sees the SUV zigzagging, and one of the sisters is physically pulling the other one's hair. Another witness says there's screaming coming from the SUV. The prosecuting attorney said that witnesses said that at one point, Alexandria pulls off to the side of the road and turns her hazard lights on. And when people passed, they said she was crying. And she gets back on the road. One witness says they heard the engine revving loudly before it accelerated down the road, and then it suddenly jerked to the left and went over the cliff. So the prosecuting attorney says that the state's case hinges on these facts: hard acceleration, a hard left turn with no braking, eyewitness testimony, and data retrieved from the SUV, and some evidence recovered from the roadway. So Alexandria's defense attorney, Bernie Bervar, counters in his opening statement that the horrible fatal wreck was an accident and not murder. Now, she's being brought up on second-degree murder charges. It should also be noted that she was arrested a few days after the original accident, but was released pretty quickly by a judge who said there wasn't enough evidence. And she got on a plane and flew back to Utica, their childhood home, and the prosecuting attorney was like, no. So 6 months later, the prosecuting attorney gets a grand jury to indict Alexandria, and they extradite her back from Utica. So one witness says that Anastasia was pulling Alexandria's hair so hard it was jerking her head over to the passenger side, to the passenger seat. Cecilia Kappas testified for the prosecution that she heard Alexandria screaming that she needed help. She said, "I need a psychiatrist." And she described Anastasia in the passenger seat as looking very, very aggravated and scared. So another prosecution witness, Randolph Castro, said he was driving and saw through his rearview mirror the twins fighting and the SUV weaving. Dean Warner testified for the prosecution that he heard screaming coming from someone other than the driver, so that means Anastasia. And during cross-examination, asked if the driver of the SUV smiled at him. He said yes, she did. I don't know.
Oh, that's creepy.
Yeah. I think this was par for the course for these girls. This was their lifestyle. This is what they did. And it's probably a relationship no one's really going to understand unless you're a twin. So they actually have a accident reconstructionist who I'm pretty sure thought he was going to get to have sex with Alexandria, because he's like, no, it didn't look like anything weird was going on. No. What are you people talking about? His name is Wayne Slagle, I think.
Or it might just be that he was paid a good amount of money to say that.
I think he's a whore. Defense witness Wayne Slagle, an accident reconstructionist expert, claimed that the cliff drop wasn't visible from the road, and that one must stand at the edge of the road and look over a short wall to see the drop. He said that the berm, which is a raised area of dirt which can act as a ramp, was responsible for the sharp left turn made by the SUV that sent it over the cliff. He said there's evidence that the driver had the steering wheel to buffer her from hitting the windshield, but the passenger hit the roof and then was tossed into the back seat when the SUV rolled over. When Slagle was asked if it was consistent with someone accidentally hitting the gas when they wanted to hit the brake instead, he said he thinks it's more consistent with someone trying to put on the brakes and not hitting the gas with enough speed to go over the rock wall. And then I think he winked at Alexandria and put his finger in his mouth.
Really?
No, I made that part up completely.
Fooled me.
So, yeah, you're so naive. It's so sweet.
Yeah, but this is such a God. This is such a weird story.
Hold on, we ain't done. So Alexandria opted for a bench trial instead of a jury trial, which I think might be a smart move, because I think a blonde twin who kills her sister being judged by a jury of her peers probably wouldn't go so well for her. So Anastasia's boyfriend at the time of her death, Federico Bailey, who seems like an interesting piece of work himself. He was living in his Jeep when he met her, and he'd only been dating her 35 days before the crash. But he has some pretty fascinating things to say. So it's the second day of the testimony in the trial. It takes an unusual turn. He says that the day of the crash, he had gone on a camping trip with Anastasia, and Allison tagged along. When asked what he did for a living, he said he's a minister of his own church, and he depends on Jesus Christ to provide for him. So
I can't believe this.
So he doesn't have to earn money. Oh no, baby, oh no, producer Mark, it gets so much worse. So Federico Bailey said he was living in his Jeep when he met Anastasia, and she invited him to come and live with her and her sister's boyfriend in their, large rental house. So he's on a camping trip with Anastasia, and Alexandria comes with him, and he's like, okay, this is weird, whatever. So Anastasia says, would you introduce Alexandria to some people because she's lonely? That could also be code for, can you find her a dude and a bottle of wine so we can go fuck in a tent and she's not watching us? I could be wrong, but I'm reading between the lines here. So he introduces, poor Federico, introduces Alexandria to some other people at the campsite. And then when he returns to the campsite, he finds Anastasia talking to somebody else and they kind of get in a fight. So he walks away to compose himself. When he comes back to the campsite, the twins are gone. They left him at the campsite.
Okay, well.
So now this is a guy who, lived in his Jeep. So he waits and they come back 4 hours later. And this time he thinks, I think they're drunk. I think some wine was purchased and they're drunk. They then drive off and leave him again. They leave him again, and he has to hitchhike home. The next day, May 30th, I guess it was a long weekend, Memorial Day, he gets back to the rental house, and Alexandria comes in that afternoon, I guess after being released from the hospital, and won't answer his questions. Basically, it's like, oh, by the way, Anastasia's dead.
Oh, boy.
Mm-hmm. She then takes a shower, asks him to help her wash her hair, comes out and puts on her dead sister's dress, comes up to Federico, and kind of starts impersonating Anastasia and cuddles up to him. And as he says, it felt like she was flirting with me. It was really weird because Anastasia had that dress on 2 days earlier.
This is turning into an episode of Night Gallery.
That's actually a really great description. It is almost surreal and monster-like. So the worst part of this, in my opinion, is that Judge Cahill declares Alexandria not guilty of second-degree murder on February 1st. 2018. Now, there are people who say that is the best outcome. Obviously, they were both very sick and need help. Yeah, I think it's clear that there's mental illness, addiction problems, rampant narcissism. I think there's a lot going on. And the part that hurts my heart is that they took something that I love so much, which is yoga, and tried to use it as a springboard to stardom, which I remember that hilarious joke you told me, producer Mark, about how do you make $1 million as a folk singer? Well, you start with 2 million. So how do you make $1 million as a yoga instructor? You start with 3 million, because you're not going to make that. So most people, unless you brand yourself and want to become a cottage industry, and if you do, your heart's probably not in the right place. That's all I'm saying. It's heartbreaking to me that yoga is involved ever in murders, and this isn't exactly a murder where someone takes a knife or a gun, but a vehicle is a weapon, obviously a weapon of choice. So Federico Bailey lives in Anastasia's Porsche convertible after her death until the police take it away. I guess maybe it was repossessed. I don't know. So Alexandria has been released. She is acquitted, and I am horrified. And she's now like 39 years old. Probably has a long life to live, although the pictures of her, besides the filler in the face, I'm not like an expert, but she looks extraordinarily puffy. The kind of puffy I think happens when you drink a lot. And I'm going to guess that she hasn't stopped drinking since the day she killed her sister. I know she was arrested in August in Utica before she was extradited back to Hawaii, or to Maui. So I imagine she hasn't gotten off the wine train since then. And I kind of don't blame her. I think if if you're a twin, I can't imagine what it's like to be driving a vehicle where someone else dies. And perhaps, I mean, here's another part that really is annoying about laws in Hawaii. The first officer on the scene says he smells alcohol on Alexandra's breath, but there's no test done. All they have is his testimony in court. There's no breathalyzer. There's no blood test. I don't understand. She had minor injuries, which again, I do not understand, because if you see that SUV, it's a tin can that someone has, it's not a tin can, it's an aluminum soft drink can that someone stepped on with their heel. And it's now an accordion. It's amazingly bizarre, and I don't know how anyone lived at all. But she did, and I'm going to hope that she doesn't want to open a yoga studio. And if she does and you're looking for a job, I would consider Pilates and more cowbell.
And remember, if you've got a tip, we want to hear about it. Give us a call at 832-TIPSTER. That's 832-847-7837. Or send an email to jttipsters@gmail.com.